Hey guys, Captain Sean 520 here with a quick little tutorial. Today we're going to be weathering an HO scale freight car. My choice today is taking this Burlington Northern 50-foot plug door boxcar right here. So one of the things that I already did is I painted my wheels of my trucks, as you can see there, with a mixture of rail brown and antique white is what I prefer to use. It's an enamel, so it does need to be thinned down. I use about 4 to 1. So 4 parts paint to about 1 part thinner. So we have our car. First and foremost, this is what you need. Second of all, to make good rust streaks, get this little tool right here. I made this out of a paper plate, cut some little streaks and everything in there, and what we're going to use this for is our rust streaks on our freight car. And I'll show you how to do that here momentarily. The method that I use for my weathering is a mixture of the weathering chalks. I use AIM weathering chalks. I use colors such as grimy black, new rust, old rust, medium, and dark earth, as well as a little bit of white here and there if I need to fade it down. Also, I use my handy dandy airbrush. This airbrush is an Iwata Eclipse HPCS double action airbrush with a number 2 needle in there, or number 2 nozzle. And I prefer taking the handle off, as it allows me a little bit more of a grip, and a little bit more of a stronger grip and more control of the gun when I'm using it. So let's go ahead and get started. Move my coffee out of the way there. Just going to go ahead and airbrush it first. And what I'm going to do is just give it a real basic coat. I'm not going to do the rust streaks just yet. But first of all, I'm going to check my spray pattern, make sure my spray is good. And I'm just going to go lightly on the bottom of the car here. And you can already see that it's starting to take it down to a dirtier finish. Always remember to get the end caps. And I usually get the corners and the tops. Always remember to get your edges first. And we're going to go ahead and do the other side now. And I kind of just put the car at an angle. That way it'll naturally fill in it'll actually naturally fade itself out. So there you go. And it doesn't have to be perfect either. So if you look at the car, and what's great about this particular paint mixture is because it's so thinned down and because the air is coming out and it's pushing it out, it dries to the touch almost immediately. So now that we've gone ahead and done our basic fade, I'll teach you how to use our little streak tool here. What I do is I just put in a random place, nothing specific, and I'll take my airbrush and I'll just go over it lightly, nothing fancy. As you can see there, the streaks have already started to show up. So that's one side, and I want to keep it as random as I possibly can. You don't want this to be forming a pattern. So what I'll do is I'll use the end of that card now and just kind of go over by where the door rail is here. And I'm just putting it out real lightly, nothing thick. Look at my work, and there you go. Just a couple more little rust streaks. Now we're going to get the other side of the card. As you can see, the rust streaks have kind of come in there, and this is still using the same color, the rail brown, and it works out perfectly. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I mean by putting the rust streaks in the appropriate location by the end of the door track. I'm going to go ahead and brush it again, just real lightly, doesn't take a lot. If a little bit oversprays, that's fine. That's why you're not trying to shoot out too much paint. As you can see right there at the end of the door track right here, the rust streak has has come down from the end of that track as opposed to right in the middle more so or less. So I'm pretty happy with that little bit of streaking right there. What I'm going to be using today is the AIM Products Grammy Black weathering powder. I've got a weathering kit from AIM which includes sand, dirty white, earth or dark earth, and a new fresh rust, as well as a little bit of medium earth. Now, I've also got a little bit of Tester's rust paint right here, enamel, and I've got paintbrush, cost me about 50 cents, with majority of the bristles cut off, as you can see there. The majority of the bristles are cut off because this little bit actually helps me get a rust effect if I were just to dab it. So that will be used with the rust paint. And I also have an assortment of makeup brushes. So this is for the sharp fine lines, this is for blending those fine lines, and this is for blending everything. I picked this up at Rite Aid for like $7 for the 3 of these, and they're really good because they're really, really soft, so they're great for blending. Also I have a small F211 colloquial brush. It's not very big, but it's good for dry brushing, so that's why I've actually spread out the bristles as it is. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So good tool to have is a paper plate to catch all your powder so you don't really make that much of a mess, especially if you're weathering inside. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to make my rust streaks. So I'm going to take my rust paint, shake it up real good. Go ahead, instead of dipping the brush into the bottle itself, I just use the cap because I'm not using that much. So go ahead and dip just a little bit, and we're going to use a dry brush technique. So I'm going to go ahead and get most of that paint off, and I'm going to go ahead and put the paint where the door would streak by. Remember, not too much paint. So we've got a little bit of rust on there. I'm going to go ahead and dip again, get the excess off here. We're going to do just a couple more patches here and there. And we'll do one right around here too. Okay, so you can see there that I've done the rust patches, or the rust coming down. And what we're going to do is we're going to end up adding weathering powders to that, and it's going to really blend it in quite nicely. So we're going to go ahead and do the other side now. Okay, so pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and just add a couple more on this side and move on to the next step. Okay, so I'm not going to do any more of the rust painting, so we can go ahead and put that dry brush away. Now we can go ahead and close up our rusty paint now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up our weathering kit with our fresh rust. It's going to be a really cool effect that it gives us. And the reason why we use this paper plate is to catch any excess so we're not wasting it. So you can see I just barely put enough on there. I'm going to dab a little bit off on the paper plate. And then we're going to go over the rust marks that we made with the paint. And just very lightly go over the top. And it's okay, use your finger. Your finger will give a better, more of a random effect anyway. So we're just going to barely touch it on the paint, which is already dry. And we're going to randomly place the rust powder on the streaks that we made earlier and the newer dry brush streaks that we use with the Tester's paint. And the great thing about this new rust powder is a little bit goes a long way. And see, I'm not going heavily. And you can see already what I've done there is I have just basically covered the streaks that we made earlier and the little blotches that we made with the dry brush effect. So, and already it looks 100 times better. Alright guys, so my phone ran out of memory to finish up the rest of the project, but I haven't done anything different. I told you guys everything that I was going to do, and here's our finished product. You see there, it's got the nice rust effect on there with rust rotting and stuff like that. Same thing with the top, and on the other side as well, and also the ends. Only thing left to do now is to go ahead and clear coat it. I choose to use a dull coat. I don't like the gloss coat. And also, one of the things that I did was added the rust powders to the couplers, as well as the brake wheel chain on both sides, and a little bit of rust down there at the bottom. You gotta get real creative with it. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment, send me a message, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video. We'll talk to you soon. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.